Eren Yeager. When we first met him, he was just a boy, fiery, full of rage, and hell-bent on eradicating the Titans. He was the type of character we all rallied behind. The classic underdog protagonist who wants nothing more than to protect his friends and free humanity. But hey, we loved him for it. He was your typical shonen underdog hero, right? You know, the fight for your friends, never give up kind of guy? Except, instead of wanting to be Hokage, he wanted to commit mass Titan murder, which honestly seemed like a solid plan at the time. Today we're deep diving into the psychology of Eren Yeager, exploring how a boy who started with righteous ideals became one of the most morally ambiguous, if not terrifying characters in anime. What pushed him over the edge? How did a hero become a monster he swore to destroy? And most importantly, was Eren ever truly a hero, or was the writing always on the wall? Let's break it down. Let's start with the early Eren, the Eren we all rooted for. The kid who stood helpless as his mother was devoured by a Titan, the boy whose hatred for the Titans fueled his every waking moment. At first glance, Eren's motivations are easy to understand. He's driven by revenge, a desire to protect, and a burning need for freedom. That word, freedom, is a cornerstone of Eren's entire existence. His dream is simple, to see the world beyond the walls and free humanity from the clutches of the Titans. If you were to sum up Eren's psychology at this stage, it's all about reclaiming agency in a world where he feels powerless. He's the classic shonen protagonist in many ways. Strong sense of justice? Check. Determination to overcome impossible odds? Check. Willingness to sacrifice himself for the greater good? Check. But, and this is where things start to get interesting, Erens Drive is fueled by a darker undercurrent than we usually see in shonen heroes. It's not just about protecting people, it's about destroying the Titans. Completely, totally, without mercy. Eren's rage isn't righteous, it's personal, and from a psychological perspective, that's a crucial distinction. He's not trying to save humanity out of a sense of altruism, he's doing it because he hates the Titans. His desire for freedom is rooted in his need for control. Control over the world, control over his fate, and control over the things that have caused him pain. And that's where the seeds of his eventual transformation are planted. Fast forward to the middle of the series, and Eren's world is flipped upside down. The Titans aren't mindless monsters. The people outside the walls, the very people Eren thought he was fighting to protect, are just as human as he is. This is a massive turning point in Eren's psychological journey. He goes from seeing the world in black and white to a much grayer, more complicated reality. And this, my friends, is where we start to see the cracks in Eren's psyche. Imagine dedicating your entire existence to fighting what you think is an inhuman enemy, only to learn that the enemy is in fact human. Eren isn't just dealing with a betrayal of his worldview, he's grappling with an existential crisis. His entire sense of self is tied to the idea that he's humanity's savior, the one who will free his people from the Titans. But now he's faced with the truth. The Titans aren't the real enemy, and humanity's freedom isn't as simple as defeating them. This is where the psychology of Eren Yeager takes a darker turn. Faced with the weight of his new knowledge, Eren's mind begins to fracture. His ideals of freedom remain, but the means by which he'll achieve it become far more brutal. We see him start to distance himself from his friends, keeping secrets and making decisions without consulting anyone. In his mind, he's the only one who can truly understand the burden of the future, and this isolation is key to understanding his descent. Eren's innocence, if you could call it that, dies when he learns about his future, when he discovers the truth about the Attack Titan's ability to see future events, and more specifically, his role in the devastation to come. Something inside him breaks. Like, imagine having the power to see what's coming, and all you see is a highlight reel of you wrecking everyone's lives. This is the point of no return for Eren's psyche. Think about it. Eren now knows that he is destined to bring about a catastrophic event. He sees a future where millions will die by his hands, all in the name of Eldia's freedom. This isn't the dream of a young boy who wants to save the world anymore. It's the nightmare of a man who has accepted his role as the bringer of destruction. Like, bro, what happened to wanting to protect people? Eren's psychology shifts from one of a freedom fighter to something much darker. He doesn't just want to free humanity, he wants to wipe out anyone who stands in the way of that freedom. From a psychological standpoint, this is where Eren's character becomes truly fascinating. He's no longer driven by a simple desire for revenge or even a desire to protect. He's driven by the idea that the end justifies the means. No matter how horrific those means may be, this is where we see the emergence of a god complex in Eren. He sees himself as the only one capable of understanding the world as it truly is, and because of that, he believes that only he can decide its fate. In many ways, Eren becomes a reflection of the very thing he once hated. He becomes a force of destruction, unyielding and unstoppable, and the scariest part, he knows it. He's fully aware of the devastation he's about to cause, and he accepts it. It's this cold, calculated acceptance that makes Eren such a terrifying character. Now let's talk about the paradox at the heart of Eren's character, freedom. It's the one thing he's always wanted, but the way he goes about achieving it traps him in a cycle of violence and destruction. In his quest for freedom, Eren chains himself to a future where countless people will die. His desire to protect his friends leads him to sacrifice millions of others. This is the ultimate tragedy of Eren's psychology. He's trapped by his own ideals, unable to see a way out that doesn't involve massive bloodshed. The more he fights for freedom, the more he becomes enslaved to his own vision of it. And here's where things get even more twisted. Eren's vision of freedom is inherently selfish. It's not about freedom for everyone. It's about his people and no one else. Everyone else? Nah, they're just NPCs in his world. Sorry, but if you're not from Paradis Island, you're getting deleted. Anyone who stands in the way of that, whether they're enemies or innocents, has to be removed. From a psychological perspective, this is a classic case of cognitive dissonance. Eren believes he's fighting for freedom, but his actions directly contradict that belief. He's willing to take away the freedom of others to secure his own, and he justifies it by telling himself that it's necessary. It's a fascinating study in how a character's ideals can become their own undoing. So where does that leave us? Is Eren Yeager a hero or a villain? The beauty of his character lies in the fact that he's both and neither. He's a tragic figure, consumed by his ideals, shaped by his experiences, and ultimately broken by the weight of his choices. Eren's journey is one of the most psychologically complex in anime, and that's what makes him so compelling. In the end, Eren is neither the boy we started with nor the monster some claim he's become. He's a reflection of the struggle for freedom, the cost of achieving it, and the sacrifices made along the way. Whether you see him as a hero or a villain, one thing is certain. Eren Yeager is one of the most fascinating characters in anime, and his story will be debated for years to come. And that, my friends, is the psychology of Eren Yeager. Whether you agree with his actions or not, you can't deny the depth of his character. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you see Eren as a hero, a villain, or something in between?